Roll, please.
All right, Sharon,
Here.
David Anderson,
Here.
Bill is not, Janet,
Here.
Kyle,
I am here, Heishka.
thank you. David Dellendorf,
Yeah, he's there.
I think he's on the road.
He's,
Yeah,
but he's
looks like it.
there.
I'm here.
It-
I'm in
yeah.
the ferry terminal in Anacortes. Thank you. I'm
Great.
here.
Great. Glad you're here.
Paul,
Here.
Jane,
Yes.
I see her just joining.
Here,
Thank you, Patty,
here.
Tony, still traveling,
Was with us last night.
Dick,
Yeah.
I'm here.
see you there, Liz,
Oh, yeah.
okay, Bob,
Here.
Kevin,
Here.
Olivia will be late, Maureen,
Here.
Anne Marie,
Here.
and Tom.
Here.
Thank you all.
Hey, Tom.
Tom, you're on an escalator. Get off of it.
Okay, we are going to go directly into the continued discussion of the election versus appointment of the county manager.
Oh.
And I'd like to program with Maureen C., who is going to review the findings from the, is that right, Maureen? The review the
Yes,
findings
correct.
of the versus appointment committee.
Once again, I'm going to ask my colleague Dave Anderson if he would be kind enough to screen share.
1 second. Yeah.
Okay, I can, by way of introduction, just let you know that the elected versus appointed committee met in February, and the first meeting was dedicated to just talking about elected versus appointed. And we did a lot of conversation, a lot of pro and con about what that is. And then the next many meetings were all about the individuals' positions that we were reviewing. On May 7th, we passed a motion that we voted to keep the county manager an appointed position versus an elected position. And it was unanimous. It was one of those votes that everybody felt very strongly about and felt that was the right thing to do. And it was the right balance for San Juan County, a 3-person commission, elected and a 1-person appointed manager. We feel it is working. And when Dave gets our list up, I'll show you the findings that we reviewed. I sent it to you, Dave, just a little while, today. There you go.
Is
Here it
that
goes.
Thank you.
working?
Yes,
Okay.
it is. Perfect. Thank you so much, Dave.
You should ask for more money, Dave.
I would give it to him if I had it. Okay, so this was a unanimous, and so everyone knew in the Dave Dellendorf pointed this out, and it was a great recommendation. On the updated one that I sent around today, we put the vote as 6 ayes and 0 nays, so that people would know that there were a committee of 6.
Mhm.
And essentially, you can see the council manager form is working. That the manager appointed version has more accountability and transparency. It also allows for the ability to find qualified, professional, and credentialed people, which in government is a good thing to have. Appointment can insulate the appointed person from the pressures of political interests. Allows for quick removal should that person prove incompetent. And the appointment of the county manager allows the county council to maintain greater control over county government, which in the last commission was our goal in setting up back to the 3-person. It allowed the council to be the ones that are in charge, that make the decisions, and the manager is responsible to them. So, given that, Kevin, how would you like to proceed from here?
What I would like to have next is that our current county manager take a few moments to comment. And so if we could stop sharing for, well, actually, let me ask first, are there any questions of Maureen or the subcommittee on either their findings or her comments now?
I see Dave's hand.
Dave,
Oh,
no?
no, I'm
No, I'm
sorry.
just about to stop sharing screen.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, if we could stop sharing.
Okay.
Okay, I see James' hand.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Maureen, just a quick question regarding two of the points that we just saw. I find it interesting that those exact same points were used for justification to have an elected sheriff. Number one is, removal from political interests, and the other was more accountability and transparency. So it's quite interesting how there's, those same arguments are used for an appointed position and elected position. So I find that interesting. And I'm curious to know, if you could explain, or any of your committee members could explain a little bit more about how an appointed manager increases transparency and accountability, for number one. And for number two, how it insulates them from political interest. Because I believe the sheriff went on record in our previous meeting when we had the same kind of discussion about his appointment. He argued the exact same things for his elected position. So I'm just interested, because I think everybody here, all the commissioners present, know that that was what happened as well. So I'm just interested to hear a little bit more about that from the committee prior to hearing from our county manager directly, who likely will have his own views on that, and that would be beneficial for us to hear as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jane. I think all of our members might want to key in on this one, because for every pro, there is a con, and often they balance each other. The accountability is really important, because when you have an appointed person, that person is not elected. They are accountable to a supervisor, and the supervisor in this case is the county council, which makes them transparent, because they have to account for what they do, and they're seen that way. An elected person, as we have been talking about for weeks and weeks, does not have to be held accountable to anyone but the voters. So that separates the appointed from the elected in this case. And in terms of the political interests, I think that is in almost every article I've ever read about elected versus appointed, because sometimes elected people are beholden to those who contributed to their campaigns or helped them get elected. And an appointed person is not running a campaign. They're vetted and brought in. Does my committee have anything they want to add to that?
Paul, please go ahead.
When we had the Snohomish County executive talking to us, he talked to us. He's been on both sides of the square here, so he also was a council person and an executive. And he mentioned that there are times when the executive had veto power over the council. I thought that was very interesting.
That's right.
And I didn't think in a small county like San Juan that would be a good thing to have. So.
Okay, I have Dave and then Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I made the motion that we talked about this discussion, I think it's really an important one. I'm glad we're having it today. Thank you. It was something that was brought up to us by the League of Women Voters and another organization during our campaigns. I wonder that into the future, if we're focused on December 30th, 2030, if we're going to have a government structure that's strong enough, that's going to be working for the people of San Juan County. And I support the idea of keeping the county manager appointed. And I think that's effective. It's important to have a professional who's running the county government. But I also feel that we need to have an executive that is elected by the people. We saw the executives from King County and Snohomish County, politicians who use those political skills to lead the entire of the county, not just the county government, but they are involved in the full trajectory of the county. And I think our commission has been well served by a politician and a manager combo. Chairman Ranker came to us as also a senator and a former councilman and a commissioner. And he brought with us not just his political skills in terms of working with people and knowing people and being a known person, he brought political capital. And political capital is an abstract thing when you think about it in terms of a county manager who is getting their power from a council and is in charge of running the 100 and some people that work for the county. The political capital of a county executive is larger and oversees the whole of the county. It's a holistic approach to county government. And so I look down to 10 years from now. Right now, we are seeing a lot of economic upheaval, climate crisis, technology is exploding. The technology will double 5 times in the next 10 years. And also there's gonna be political upheaval. And I'm wondering what's the structure that we're gonna need to have in place 10 years from now. And I'm wondering if the structure we have right now has enough muscle. We are the most fragile county in the state. We are subject we're the mercy of the state ferries. And the state ferries are vulnerable. We are vulnerable to in the economic crisis, we are vulnerable to wealthy people getting more wealthy, billionaires getting more wealthy, and there's going to be poor people and middle-class people who are becoming more stranded here on these islands. And I feel that we need a government that has the power and the ability to really address all these problems that could be coming down the road. So again, I think that what we have is in our commission is a great combination of a politician and a manager in terms of Commissioner Roseberry. She's served us well, and they brought different skills to this. And I would like to see a combination like that for our county. A politician who is leading the effort in the whole of the county, and a manager who is on the ground, really directing, making sure that the county is running smoothly for the county government and the one for the whole of the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. I think by comparing it to me, you just killed your agenda, but that's all right. We're gonna go to Bob, please. And
I think
I have to step away for just 2 seconds.
Dave's comments were very interesting. The idea that I hadn't heard of before of having an appointed manager, and then, if I understood correctly, an elected executive, which was more broad. My feelings on that and the whole issue of appointed versus elected is that we will someday, or we may someday, be a large enough county in population. I hope it doesn't come for a long time, but it may come that it will be appropriate to have an elected executive or manager, however you want to put it, a person who's running the show there, who is separate from the legislature. But my feeling about it is, now that we are a small enough county, that the growing pains that we went through, apparently with the last commission, from what I get from listening to Maureen, to get back to the three county commissioners, county council members who run the show. It was a struggle to get there. We got there, and we're at a good place. And the county manager, apparently everyone sings the praises of both this individual and the way that the position works. And so I am so very much in favor of it staying the way that it is until such time as there is growth that requires otherwise. One thing we lose track of is that these commissions, the one we're sitting on now, must happen at least every 10 years, but can happen at any point along the way, as long as it's in an even numbered year. The election is an even numbered year. It could happen 2 years from now. That would be kind of a waste of money, but you could see it happening 6 years from now if it was necessary at that time to do that, to switch horses. I don't think it's going to be, but so I'm very much in favor of staying with what we have now for a while. I mean, I did want it to be looked at. I thought it was a good idea to look at again. Thank you. Yes.
So I was just going to say, we're starting to get into deliberations. And
Yes.
so I'd like us to, if anybody has a question of Maureen or the subcommittee, and if not, I'd like to let Mike speak to us. Who's the
Oh,
current
okay.
manager, and then we can have deliberations.
I
So
misunderstood.
Dave, I'm going to go ahead and cut it off now and let Mike give his thoughts to us and his comments so that we can hear from him before we get into deliberations. Because what I find with our commission is it's impossible for us to not go there. So, okay. Mike, thank you again for your time. Thank you for your service. And most importantly, thank you for putting up with this back and forth. I know that personally, this is difficult to have people debating a question that actually directly impacts you. So just thank you for your time and your professionalism through this.
Certainly. And yes, interesting discussion. And, I'd say county government's complicated. There's a lot to local government, and especially counties. There's a lot of considerations, and it's we're small, but in some way we're a large organization to manage. So really, so I'm in a certain seat, but I'm not here to talk about myself. I'm here to talk about the county. And really, this discussion about manager versus appointed manager versus elected is really a discussion about form of government. So for counties, you have two forms of government. You've got the council manager, which you are now familiar with, and then we have the council executive, where you have a separate executive. And you heard from my old boss Ron Sims was in here at the front end of the CRC discussions, and then you had the Snohomish County executive. And that's a much different model. And really, you see that in only 4 of the 39 counties in the state. Whatcom is kind of the smaller. They're kind of the one that doesn't really fit in because they're smaller than Pierce and Snohomish and King County. But those are very large organizations that take, 3 very robust branches to run an organization. From Whatcom County, they have 900 employees up to the 15,000 employees that you have at King County. You have 5 to 9 council members in those councils. So it's just a huge operation. And so the perspective that, I'm sharing is really my experience under the county manager, but I also spent 8 years under the county exec. So that's the experience I'm going to share with you guys tonight. So, and then really that's the most important thing is the future of this county. It's not me or who sits here in whatever form. So when we look at what we have today, so the last commission, as they collapse the executive and legislative functions into one body, and that's the council. And so they have that large responsibility, and they're the leading edge of the organization. So we all fall in behind them. They adopt the budget, they set policy, different initiatives, direct the workload, they take care of the employees. That's not to say that there isn't a lot of input from the other departments and separate electeds, but they are clearly the head of the organization. They're where the constituencies go when they have an issue, and then I guess works through the department. So they are the figurehead of the organization. And to help them run the organization, they hire someone like me that has experience. And so we've seen that for almost 10 years now. And I think it's been successful. I think it's the right size for this county. And the other thing I want to emphasize too is the 3 council members is great because they provide, one of the things when you work in the county and you work within the different islands is that everyone is acutely aware of what everyone's getting from the county. And so we take a lot of pain to make sure that, that there is equity. And with 3 council members, they have to learn to live together. No one council member can get much, they can't steal the show, if you will. So that's worked. And I think, the record speaks for itself, and I don't need to go into that, but, times do change, to Dave's point, and we have reorganized, we've survived, 2 budget crises, we survived the pandemic, knock on wood, almost. We've addressed everything from affordable housing to whales. So under that model, we have adapted to what the citizens are interested in. We've adapted to what the legislature has given us. So it is an adaptive model. The council is the figurehead. Now, if you look at the county exec model, then you have this standalone person that has the executive power. So one thing that, and I haven't listened to all of your deliberations, but one consideration is how do you split the baby? So council now has the legislative and executive authority. So how do you go in and bifurcate that body of work and say, this goes to the executive and this goes to the legislative? So really, in my experience in King County, the council there, they do a lot of work, but they're not the figurehead of the organization. Yes, they have to pass the budget. The exec needs to work with him, but the executive is now their own operator. And so they become more visible than the council. They do more media than the council. When I worked at King County, it was all about counting votes. How many votes do we have to do this initiative? How many votes do we have to do this? Who might be in opposition to that? And so one thing I worry about in a very small county like ours is that if you're an elected county executive, you just need 2 votes. You need 2 votes to get the budget passed, your initiative passed. And so one of the things I worry about is then that we're not going to have equity amongst the islands. So maybe Lopez gets frozen out on something, or Orcas gets frozen out on something. It's a much different dynamic. It also creates a dynamic amongst the appointed department heads that would respond to that would report to the executive. And so the executive is going to make their own determination about which department heads they want or don't want. And so there becomes some politics there. There's politics amongst the council and the exec. It just really infuses or provides the opportunity to infuse the conversation with more politics than what we have now. And for such a small place, you know, we have 200+ employees. I don't think that's really to our benefit. There's a cost side to the elected. I mean, you heard from them, but when you look at their websites or whatever, I know from experience is that those separately electeds work because behind them is a wall of professional staff. They have a chief of staff, they have an assistant executive. And so we would need the same thing here. You can't rely on someone being able to come in as an elected and know how to run a $100 million operation. That's just not going to happen. So you're going to have a professional staff or staffs behind them to help them do the work. So I'm afraid that that model doesn't fit us. It's not, our county is not big enough, and it infuses too much politics within the organization. It changes the council's presence to something a little more removed from what they have done now. The comment earlier about political capital, we all expend political capital. So you don't see that in a certain given person right now. You see that in the 3 council members. And I can't emphasize this enough. Our council members go far afield from the county. You know, we have Mr. Stevens in Olympia during session. We have Cindy in regional public health and mental health. We have Christine on ferries. They go far afield to represent the county. So you're not seeing and hearing that from one person, but that's happening via three people. Political interest, the question that was brought up earlier, there's politics in everything we do. I mean, we're all grown-up people here, but I don't have my own politics. My politics are the politics of council. So I have my own opinion, my own professional opinion that I relay to council, but I don't have a political agenda because my job is to try to affect their political agenda. And certainly for accountability with a manager, I always joke that I'm 2 votes away from a permanent vacation. So if I'm rubbing council wrong, or whomever's sitting in this seat is rubbing council wrong, then they're like, hey, you know, it's not working out. And so there's that direct accountability. So, you know, I think the last charter commission has struck the right balance. I'm not going to reiterate what Maureen provided because I think that captures nicely the thought at that time and how it's working. So at this point, I will be happy to answer any questions that you have now or however it works into the conversation.
Thank you very much, Mike, for that overview and for your insights as well. Any other questions for Mike directly? Any questions for Mike? Jane, please.
I see David's hand up. Did David have a question for Mike? Because his hand up was before mine.
No, it's a comment, a general
Oh.
comment later.
Oh,
Great.
okay.
Thank you.
David, I'll get to you when we're done with questions. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, just a quick question for Mike about something that that I'm curious to know a little bit more about, and that is the relationship. There's a third branch of government that interestingly in the work of our commission didn't get a lot of discussion until our Justice and Equity Committee started sort of needing to understand this other branch of government, which is the judicial branch. And so something I'm interested to hear you talk a little bit more about for us today is, you spoke to how, your the focus of your work is really to, in support of the council's priorities, right? And so I'm interested to know, given that the judicial branch has elected offices as well, how do the priorities of that judicial branch of government intersect or talk to, if you will, the priorities of county council, et cetera, and how do those things get worked out? Because we haven't talked a lot about the judicial branch in the course of our work, and so it'd be helpful to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear that, when I talk about the council's agenda, I'm really talking about the entire, the council, works across the entire organization, from the courts to land bank. I do as well in many different forms. So I want to make clear that it's the entire thing. And you're right. The courts are, they have their own unique authority and their own unique, the mission. So our job is really to support the courts. So whether that's staffing, their physical space, I think the sheriff talked about this in his comments. There's a law, safety, and justice committee that meets, and we talk about whether it's public safety or there's been a lot of discussion about court fines and how that traps people into debt and keeps them from moving on with their lives. And so, that's of interest to me because it'll affect the budget and how do we adjust for that. We've had a lot of discussions about equity within that group. So they're in a way autonomous, but they have to live within the organization. And so my job is to figure out how do we accommodate them and their mission within the organization.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Mike. That was helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mike? Okay, Mike, thank you again for your time. Let's go into deliberations. And so, Dave, you had your hand up a while ago. Would you like to comment? And then I have David Dellendorf.
Before I comment, I did have actually a question for Maureen that I didn't ask. If I can ask that first and get her to comment, and I'll comment a little later.
Please.
Thank you. Maureen, did your committee discuss electing an executive other than just county manager? Was the elected executive and creating a separation of branches? Was that a discussion in your committee?
I believe we did. I think I would call on Bob O'Connell. I think Bob had a couple of ideas about that. I know you had a paradigm that he presented a couple of times that laid out a way to sequentially have people come and go in an organization. But we did probably briefly talk, but you know what? We all felt it wasn't a model that fit us. And I think that maybe we could have gone deeper into it, but I felt that pretty much everyone believed that that didn't fit San Juan.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question, Dave?
Yeah.
Sort
Yeah,
of. Okay.
Oh, I was going to ask Bob if you had any clarifications on that, or.
Well, I'll say that we did look at city manager being
County
appointed,
manager.
and the city manager being county, I'm sorry, and the county manager being elected. We looked at those two and went back and forth and came up with what we came up with unanimously. I don't recall discussing a second position, which is what Dave is asking. Did we look at a second position on top of city manager? Did we look at, county manager? Did we look at county executive? No, I don't believe we did at all, Dave. That's
Okay.
my memory of it.
Thank you.
Okay, I have David Dellendorf, and let the record show that Commissioner Roseberry has joined us. David, please.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Kevin. I'm loading a ferry now in accordance. My wife is driving. If there's some background noise, I apologize. I'm in favor of keeping this position. As in many of the subcommittees, when we deliberate, we asked ourselves a question, among other things, is the system broken? Right? Why are we talking about this? And we started off by saying, it's working well, but nobody's complaining.
David,
There may be some.
you're
Yes.
breaking up, David, but I think we did hear your first part with, and if I'm correct, you said that you were in favor of keeping the manager appointed.
Yes. Yes. Can you hear me better now?
A little bit. Do you want to try again? Yeah, and actually,
Well, I'll try. Yes.
David, why don't you turn off your video and maybe that will help.
Okay.
No, so
Okay.
David, we're going to come back.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments at this point in time? Any other comments? Okay, so I want to clarify for the commission that no action on this would keep the current situation. So no action would be that we would be accepting, well, not even accepting. No action would mean that we are keeping the county manager as an appointed official with the current structure as the subcommittee recommended, which all of us have gone through the detail and done our homework, I know, because I received a lot of emails on this. It would take a motion to change that. And so seeing no more comments under deliberation, I would ask if anybody has a motion, and if not, we can move forward. Does anybody have a motion at this time? Okay, I see no action. So the decision of this commission by no action is to accept the recommendation of the subcommittee and keep the county manager appointed. Congratulations, Mike. I think that has a lot to do, not just with your words today, but the performance that you've shown to this community over a number of years. So thank you very much.
May I make a comment real quickly?
Who's that, Dave? Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you for listening to this conversation and coming today. It's been I think it's really important that we look at the structure and that we are doing it. This is the third government we've had in 16 years, and I appreciate this conversation happening. So thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Dave.
you're welcome.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Thank you all very much for that discussion and the deliberations on it as well. Okay, so we are now going to move into the follow-up on the Climate and Environment Committee. And due to some technical difficulties earlier, I am actually going to do the slides for Anne Marie and Dick, who are going to be doing this. And so what I would like to ask, if it's okay with people, is if we could get to Q&A at the end of the slides. So I'm not trying to keep track of everybody and do slides and toggle back and forth at the same time. Is that all right with folks?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so let me see here. I should be able to, let's see.
In there.
Folks see that okay?
Yes.
Oh, all right. You may need to move the people's faces off to the side or up at the top if that's blocking.
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful. Okay, so I think Anne Marie, you or maybe you and Dick are gonna take the lead on this
Right.
subcommittee.
Right. I just wanted to open with a good afternoon and thanks to the Climate and Environment Committee for all their work on this. That's Kyle Davis, Sharon Abreu, Dick Grout, Bob O'Connell, Liz Lafferty, Kevin Ranker, and Tom Starr. Yesterday morning, I live on the water, and a mink was running on the rocks, and an eagle came in and was going to grab him. And the mink jumped up and kind of pushed him kind of back, made him back off, and then jumped in the water. And I have been, since I've been here, I've had seals nurse in front of my house, and I've heard and seen river otters made. And I just want to tell you, I think I am one of the luckiest people in the world because I live in this beautiful, beautiful place. And I know that, like me, you came here because this is such a rich and beautiful place. And this environment, this place is what brings us all together. It runs our government, and it's what keeps us happy, and it is the source of our well-being. So if we can go to the first slide.
Oh, is it letting me? I got to do it here. There you go.
So this is the mission of the San Juan County Office of Climate and Environment. It's to take urgent action to combat climate change and protect the environment. This mission has not changed. And if you're wondering why climate and environment is back, on May 12th, when we presented to you, and the Charter Commission voted and approved the creation of the Office of Climate and Environment, headed by an independently elected climate and environmental commissioner, we had a lot of questions. And we wanted to make sure that those questions were answered, that were raised by the prosecuting attorney's office and others, so that everyone is ready to vote when we are, as a full committee or a full commission, on all of the amendments of the charter. As I said, the mission hasn't changed. Maybe go to the next slide. So here's the scope. And just so if you're wondering how this relates to the other document you got, the other document is just a longer version of this, and it gives you more background information, but you could literally follow along if you wanted to. So this is the same information that you saw in May. This amendment creates three things. It has an Office of Climate and Environment. It's headed by an independently elected commissioner, and there is the guidance of a climate advisory committee, Climate and Environment Advisory Committee. These three items are all interrelated. They work together. So this should be a single amendment. If one item is not there, the others don't function together. And I want you to remember, as we move forward on these slides, what you'll see in the next slides is not new information. What we're transferring is the Environmental Resources Division, as it currently exists in its entirety, from Public Works to the Office of Climate and Environment. And then we are transferring a limited authority from the Department of Community Development to the Office of Climate and Environment. Next slide. Several people raised questions, and the prosecuting attorney asked us to be more specific here about what is the role of this office in the State Environmental Policy Act. Basically, what we're saying here is that the office is mandated to comment on development proposals before an initial SEPA decision is made. And this does not conflict because the office is taking on a new role. Dick, did you want to say any more here?
Well, and that is the critical part, that the office would comment. You know, you're back at the beginning with the checklist and would comment and give those comments to the SEPA responsible official so that the office is weighing in right at the beginning before any judgment is made.
And then if we go to the next slide, this is the proposed language. Both private and public proposals. That was the question that the prosecuting attorney asked us. I actually think this is probably most of his language. Okay. So then we move to the authority to enforce statutes, ordinances, and make rules. What we found, and what one of the reasons we continued as we did the last time to say, yes, we can do this, is that the elected county executives hold the authority to enforce ordinances, state statutes, and make rules. We believe that the Climate and Environment Commissioner may also hold these powers for a subset of policy areas. The precedent is there both in King and Clallam counties. And as you can see here, what we're saying is, provided that each rule and order is not in conflict with the authority that's delegated to the officer, so that would actually be to the commissioner or to the county legislative authority or to the authority of other elected officials under this statute. So there shouldn't be conflict. So here is more detail on what is actually going to be covered under this authority. I think the most important bullets for you to look at, only because of the questions that were raised, is the second bullet, which talks about all the duties of the Environmental Resources Division. All of these duties already exist there. And we're not taking any new duties out of here. In fact, what we're doing is we're saying, okay, with stormwater, we're going to be just doing the part that right now is in the Environmental Resources Division. We're not touching anything that the Department of Health or the Community Health and can't remember what their title is there. That whole division, we're not touching their area of clean water. And then the other part that's really important is to look at number 5, which is what we're not doing. The Department of Climate and Environment shall not be primarily responsible for building codes, fire codes, subdivisions, recreation, public access, tourism, or county functions unrelated to climate and environment.
And I'm going to jump in and say, I think
Sure.
that is particularly important. I mean, we had the concern from the prosecutor about being too vague, and we heard it from other people. And I think going forward with this, if this is going to the ballot, this is going to be important to a lot of people, because the general idea might be alarming, but when we tell them this is not what the Climate and Environment Office is going to be primarily interested in, not these things, that's going to be important.
So then we move to code enforcement. And I usually think of this as the critical area ordinances and the shoreline master plan. And as we discussed at the May 12th meeting, we can do code enforcement, and we're using the same language in this amendment as Clallam County and Clark County charters used. And you'll notice here in the bottom, we're asking the San Juan County Council to grant code enforcement authority through the GMA procedures. And until that happens, and we have a date certain you'll see in the language, until that happens, the office plays a supporting role in identifying, investigating, and referring code enforcement violations to the prosecuting attorney's office and the Department of Community Development. And here's the language.
And what's really important is, I mean, we understand the new office, the commissioner, climate commissioner, cannot usurp authority that either constitutionally or statutorily is given to the legislative body. But what the office and that person can do, what the voters can do, is ask that certain portions of that be transferred to this office. So if the voters express a clear intent that that's what they would like to have happen, the commissioners or the council, I'm sorry, are independent elected officials. They can do what they want, but one would hope if the voters express a clear preference for doing that the council would follow.
Okay. So this is the advisory committee, and we talked about this the last time. We've got a seven-member committee here that's appointed by the county council, and this is exactly the same. So there's nothing really, I think we answered most of the questions that were there from last time. And then these are the qualifications for the Climate and Environment Commissioner. And these were there last time. They've been there throughout. So I don't have anything more to add there.
That's it. Okay. If I need to, I can go back to one of those slides if folks have a question about a specific slide. But let's see if there's any questions from commissioners for Anne-Marie or Dick on this at this point in time. Patty, I see your hand. And then Janet.
My question is, what is the GMA?
The growth,
It's in there, but it's not spelled out
It's
anywhere.
the Growth Management Act.
Growth Management Act, which is state law.
Just so you know, it's not spelled out anywhere in that document before
Right,
you
I'm
start
sorry,
talking
yeah.
about it. So
Thank you. That's a great clarification. And the Growth
Yeah.
Management Act is the state law that dictates basically land use planning for the county. But it also has within it things like the critical areas ordinance and many other pieces that are really important to our communities. But it's the overarching law. And the point Randy brought up early on was that the functions of the GMA of the Growth Management Act and court decisions have very clearly said that this is within the jurisdiction of the county council or the legislative body of the county. So I have Janet and then David Dellendorf.
Yeah,
And then-
thank you.
Sorry, Tom Starr and then David.
Thank you.
So Janet-
Oh,
Great.
so I'm on now. Okay,
No,
I have a question.
Sorry, Tom. Janet is, and then you, and then David Dellendorf. Sorry.
Okay, in my experience, there's
Okay.
lots of.
Go ahead, Tom.
I'm sorry if I've jumped.
You're fine. Go
Okay,
ahead.
I have a couple of questions. I see that this department would not be involved in subdivisions. In my experience, there's what we call short plats of up to 4 lots and long plats of up to undefined number of lots. So if I understand this right, a 100-lot subdivision would not get any scrutiny from this department. On the other end of the extreme, would the department get involved in a application to dig a pond? So those are the extremes, and I would like to know how this department would be involved in those two projects.
Why don't we go ahead and have a little back and forth on this? I think it's important. Dick, go ahead.
Well, yeah, Tom, if you look at that language, it says that the new office would not have primary responsibility in those areas. And that's the key point. The office would still be able to comment on those things and do everything else it says here in the documents, but the primary authority would remain with the department that's doing it now.
And Tom, I brought up the slide. Those are the individual sections of code where this office would have authority.
Mm-hmm.
Shoreline Master Program, geological hazards, mining, habitat clearing, storm drainage, archaeological resources.
So it would be limited to those areas.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't eventually get into the notion of digging a pond.
Okay, I have Janet and then David and then Patty.
So I have 2 points. One is, and I mean, I was kind of comparing everything this afternoon very quickly. There seems to be some legal things that are still hanging out as far as the prosecuting office is concerned. One of which is the creation of, you can create an officer, but not an office. So you could create and then he suggests not call it commissioner, call it the director of environment, but not the office itself. And I have to say, and it'd be super helpful if, when we're getting legal opinions, if they could align their opinions with whatever the document is, because it was incredibly difficult to follow this and go back and I couldn't even figure out honestly, I couldn't even figure out where some of the points were in the legal opinion. So that's one thing is, do you feel that everything has been addressed in terms of the prosecuting office? And then the second point, which I will call the David Dellendorf point, which is last night we sort of dismissed having any qualifications for any elected positions. And yet this would be the only one that now has qualifications for an elected position. So that doesn't seem to coalesce in my mind. So those are my 2 points.
Well,
Legal and the qualification thing.
Okay, so Dick, you want to respond, or Anne Marie?
Dick, why don't you go
Anne-Marie.
ahead?
Okay,
Go ahead, Dick.
Well, I was going to say, Janet, I don't accept the argument that you can't have qualifications for one office and not for others. The commission chose not to do it for the others, but I think for this one, it's absolutely critical. I actually thought it was important for all the other offices too, and I'm sorry I couldn't be at the meeting last night.
Fair enough. That's a good explanation.
So,
Anne Marie,
go ahead, Kevin, I'm sorry.
I just want to clarify for the record, the motion last night that failed was not, it was a up or down vote on all, on the full slate that was put forward by the subcommittee. And
Mike called that.
Yeah. And so all I'm saying is several people have contacted me, and I don't know if that issue of qualifications is entirely dead yet. I think there was an up or down vote on an entire slate that many people said that they didn't want that entire slate. There were several comments last night and several comments to me in the last 24 hours saying pieces of that are, so all I'm saying is, I don't think that issue's done yet. So, and then Anne Marie, sorry.
So I don't think we've seen anywhere that we can't create an office as well as a commissioner. And one of the issues when we talk to people just on the street, if you say this person is the commissioner of climate and environment, they think that they are, in an elected position, and that's they manage an area of responsibility. If you say that someone is an officer, the climate and environment officer, the first thing that comes to mind is a badge, and it's the focus on enforcement. And enforcement is very important, but that is not the total package here. So that, and if you talk about superintendents, I think of schools. I know, like in some counties, the leadership is called superintendents. So I found all of those other titles just as confusing. And I think some of the other commissioners that worked on this also did.
So I don't want to get bogged down in whatever the title of this position is going to be, but I do want to know, it did seem, the only thing I could follow in the legal thing was the Constitution states that home rule charter can provide for such county officers, but it says nothing about creating the office. So I don't know if you want to say staff. I don't know how you want to address this, but I just don't know. I'm trying to jive the legal.
We're creating an office, a commissioner, and an advisory body. It's 3 things that go together.
Yeah. So, and Randy, we're only in the commission dialogue right now. So I will not be calling on you at this point. We're going to keep going with this right now with questions back and forth between the commissioners. And so are there, and Janet, on that, we did do a ton of research, and the prosecutor did raise that question early on. and in the last round. And we've done a lot of research. I think there's a question, and it could be semantics as well. Like you said, maybe you call it staff. And I think we're getting caught up in the semantics of it more so than the actuality of it, because charters in numerous counties have created, we'll call it a department. They've created a function, right? And so that's definitely within our authority. We just have to get the verbiage right. And that is what Anne-Marie referred to earlier too, which is at the end, we're going to have the entire document that Megan's already starting to work on. And that's where we're going to go through and have some of this stuff better worked out as far as the language. But I believe we're on very strong legal ground as far as the ability to do what we're trying to do. We just need to get it right as far as the verbiage is my understanding. Okay, I have Patty.
Wait a minute, David.
I'm sorry, David. Yes, you're correct. David.
Can you hear me?
No.
Oh, David, you're still really in and out. David, turn off your video. If you turn off your video, you'll be using less bandwidth.
I have, yes, I have. Would you read the document that I sent you yesterday? We get cut. Did you hear what I just said?
I think you're asking us to read something.
I sent you last. It's a baby in the ferry. I asked you to read it. If I can't say it, I'm asking you to read it for me. Thank you.
Okay.
But that's right now. Can you hear me? Can I talk?
No.
You're breaking up.
Okay. Goodbye. Bye.
Mr. Chair, he sent an email to all of us, which contained a paragraph of text that he asked to be read if he was not going to be able to speak in the meeting today. So we
Jane,
should
do
make reference.
do you have that right in front of you?
I can in just 1 second here. Yeah.
I have it.
Oh, Janet, Maureen, you have it?
Yeah, but I can't screen share with it though.
No,
I
I
can-
mean, you just read it.
Okay. It says, I am opposed to electing the director of the proposed Office of Climate and Environment. However, I realize that the full CRC recently voted in favor of the position being elected. I opposed that motion and remain convinced that our county and its environment would be best served by an appointed candidate fully vetted by and reporting to the county council. Electing the director will not result in the selection of the most qualified candidate. He goes on to section 2. Would you like me to read that?
How long is his?
It's not that long. I'll read it fast.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead. I think it's important.
I am confused by the discrepancy in the position of the majority of members of the Climate and Environment Subcommittee over the issue of minimum qualifications required for candidates for elected offices. Yesterday, the full CRC defeated a motion to approve specified minimum qualifications for 5 existing elected officials proposed by the Elections Subcommittee. However, many of our commissioners who voted against the motion are members of the Climate and Environment Subcommittee that is now proposing a list of qualifications for the proposed elected C&E commissioner. Moreover, according to the minutes of April 28th meeting of the C&E Subcommittee, Kevin Ranker, I know him, said that qualifications were appropriate for an elected position. I would like to ask the members of the C&E Subcommittee who voted against the motion yesterday and yet support the election of the chair of the Office of Climate and Environment to explain their rationale for this discrepancy. Which way is it?
And thank you, Maureen, for reading that. In response to his question, if he were here, I would say ask and answer, which refers to the fact that this issue already came up, and I think that it was discussed that many of us actually are in favor of qualifications, and maybe he just had a singular issue on that last vote. So,
Maureen, read number 3. Read number 3.
Dude, David, is there a third point on that email, Maureen?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Would you please read his third point?
I will. Yesterday, the full CRC also decided it was an all or nothing decision with regard to establishing minimum qualifications for the 5 existing elected positions. If the vote today by the CRC with regard to the proposed CNE commissioner contradicts this decision, then for consistency's sake, I request we reopen discussion of the possibility of establishing minimum qualifications for the 5 existing elected positions and then vote on each individually, not as a group as we did yesterday.
Awesome. So the one thing I would say on that is that last point is very, Patty, I see your hand. I've got you next on the list. And then I have Jane too. I have Patty and then Jane next. What I would say is that last point that David made is important. And under our rules, so very quickly, I'm going to do this. So the motion yesterday that failed was an up or down vote on an entire slate. If somebody else wanted to put a motion on the floor for an individual or anything separate from that individual motion that failed, they could do so. They could also ask anybody who voted in favor of that motion under Robert's rules can put a motion, can put a proposal on the table that says, and the way you would word it is, having voted in the affirmative of the motion X, I would like the motion to be reconsidered. That is another option. The other option is that 5 of you could get together and email me and say that you would like the issue to be revisited, and then we could do it that way as well. So there are 3 different alternatives to bring qualifications back. I've seen a lot of nodding as I'm saying this. I also have heard from many of you. I think there's the numbers on the commission is how I will phrase it, to maybe talk about this a little bit more. The other thing I would say is we got 5 days, guys. So let us get through this. Oh, and one thing that this was already voted upon, climate and environment proposal. What we're doing today is going through the detail to clarify what was discussed last time because there was a lot of questions. And to Janet's point, there may be additional questions and additional clarifications, and I think there will be, but today we'll hopefully be able to get through these. So what I would like to do is now go to Patty.
And the only reason I keep holding my hand up is to try keeping my brain remembering what my first issue was before we got into all of this other stuff that we have already discussed earlier. And I think it was quite apparent of what we could do. But anyway, I only wanted clarification about this office. It's my impression that when things come up for building permits or for digging a pond or whatever you have to do and get a permit for, that this office would review it first and then give a recommendation. It's not like they would vote on it necessarily, but that this office sort of reviews it for the climate and environment issues. Is that true?
Yeah. This ought to be Dick. Dick, go
Well,
ahead.
go ahead. No,
No,
well,
no, please.
I was going to say, Patty, I cannot imagine this office having the time to do that with every little thing. I mean, the focus is on the things that would come over with the Environmental Resources Division and the small portion of community development enforcement actions. So that's why we identified all those other things where the office would not have primary responsibility, because there won't be time for that. And you have to make judgments about, in the bigger picture, is this little application really significant? Is it worth our time? And the answer on a whole lot of those is going to be no. And on those things where the office doesn't have primary responsibility, it would only be commenting.
Right, right. I just thought that part of the reason for the office was kind of a general review that everything is in line with what we want to be doing. That's why I needed the clarification.
Okay. Jane?
Yeah. Good answer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just regarding the issue of the vote that took place last night, I was extremely uncomfortable with that whole discussion proceeding when the individual who'd done the most work on looking at those qualifications was not present and couldn't speak to the work that he'd actually done. So I think that was unfortunate that that's the way we proceeded, but I understand we have limited time. So I agree that we need to address that.
Jane, I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off. That is not in order with the item that we're talking about now. I think
I
it's very
haven't-
important. And
There is
Okay.
a related point, if you would allow me, Mr. Chair.
please
That
go
is
ahead.
that I would like, because the slide that had the qualifications that this subcommittee is proposing went off the screen so fast, and I'm sorry, but I don't recall what they were by looking at a previous document you sent around. So I would appreciate it if that would go back up on the screen, and I'd be interested in having this subcommittee explain the rationale for it being elected as opposed to an appointed person, because I'm not clear on that either. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. There it is. So it says 3 years, resident and registered voter, exhibit education and relevant to the job, and then 3 years applicable experience.
Thank you. And can the subcommittee speak to the issue of the elected versus appointed? Because I wasn't clear on that either. Thank you.
Does anybody, Dick or Anne Marie, do you want to comment on that?
Well,
You want
go
ahead.
ahead, Dick.
No, go. All right.
I wasn't sure what the question was about the qualifications. Did you just want to look at the screen, or did you have an issue with the qualifications?
Well, it'd be useful for you to speak to them, but it's also sort of related to the issue of the elected versus appointed position. So I defer to the subcommittee to explain, their position on those things. I'd just like to be further informed. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Bob, I see your hand.
Why don't we let Bob answer?
Then-
I think a really, should I
Oh,
go?
Bob, were you going to answer the question?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay. Go ahead.
I think a really important consideration there, Jane, was that this person who runs this department needs to not be the creature of the county council. The county council right now is in charge of the environment. And if we think the county council is doing just fine and things don't need any change, then we don't need this new department or new commissioner at all. If we think it would be good, and another way of putting it is a way that Kevin, I heard Kevin once put it, is that the county council has a whole bunch of priorities. We need an elected official who has one priority, and that is to look after the climate and environment of this county. And if this person is a creature of the council, that priority is very likely to get swallowed up. It won't happen if there is an elected head of this commission.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner O'Connell. That's very helpful, and I appreciate that. That sounds like something we heard before, and you've reminded me. So thank you for that. But just a further clarification from your subcommittee on the issue of how you came up with those qualifications for the position. I'm just interested in that as well. Thank you.
Dick, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I had a hand in that, Jane, but I certainly wasn't the only one. And my attitude was the same as when I volunteered to draft those things for the other offices, was to try to identify what are kind of the basic minimum qualifications we think would a person entering this office, whatever it is, should have. Not to make it so demanding or so onerous that you only have a tiny pool left, but to just say, what are the basic things? And that's what we did here. That's a very general statement about education. It's a general statement about experience, but it means you got to bring something to the job.
Quick follow on, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Are you of the view then that you can find that kind of person in the county?
You broke up a little bit, Jane. Do you want to try again?
I'm just curious to know, because there's 3 years residency requirement. And so I'm just curious to know your thinking on that.
Our thinking was that you need to know and understand this county if you're going to perform in this job. And we kicked around, well, how long should it be, and finally settled on 3 years. But I think I can fairly say that we all felt that, yeah, you need to be here a while and have some knowledge of the county.
Anne Marie, did you have a comment on that?
Well, I was just going to say too that, you know, there are a lot of people here that have those qualifications, and many of them are in the Environmental Resources Division, including the incumbent. So, and we have many environmental organizations here and conservation groups and people at Opalco and lots of places that have these skills or combinations of these skill sets. So I think that we have a really rich audience to tap from.
Thank you very much, Anne Marie. Thank you, subcommittee, for all those answers.
Yeah, and yeah, and Paul and Maureen, I see your hand. I've got you on the list. Paul, did you have your hand up?
No, I didn't.
Okay, I just thought I saw it, but I wasn't sure. Okay, so I have Sharon and then Maureen.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't going to speak.
Oh, okay, Maureen.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
That worked out well.
Yeah.
I sort of understand where Jane is coming from, because in discussing qualifications last night, several commissioners stated that they didn't believe in qualifications, that it wasn't necessary for electeds because you miss out on getting other people to apply. And I am all for qualifications. I believe that that is the base of many of these things. I think every job should have it. This is why I supported the other stuff from last night. But I also want to say that, you know, you could elect my neighbor, but you wouldn't want to.
I don't know who your neighbor is.
Okay, we'll keep it at that.
Okay, that's good. All right. On that note, on that cryptic note. Okay. Any other comments at this point in time? Again, this has already been voted on, so this was a review, trying to go over more detail for folks, which it's obvious from this Q&A that we needed. And there will obviously be more as this goes forward, just as with several other committees' recommendations. So any other comments at this point in time? No? Okay. Then we're going to move forward, and we are going to begin a process to start going through approved motions. And Olivia and Catherine, I'm hoping you guys can help me with this because I don't have the list in front of me. Olivia, do you have that list, or Catherine, do you have that list?
So I'm in my office at work, so I do not have access to that document, but I think Catherine's putting it up on the screen.
Perfect. Here we go. Okay, so we're just going to go through a review tonight of these, and not really get into a deliberation, but we are going to need to get into a deliberation as we move forward, because the question before us is a fewfold, actually. One is, do we want to move forward with all of these at this point in time? And then, do we want to try and split the way King County did in their last charter amendments, which is they put some forward this last November on the ballot and some forward in the coming election. And we would have the opportunity to do that as well. With the number of initiatives that are amendments to the charter that we are considering at this point in time, I find myself, I will say, in a similar situation to what Ron Sims was saying, where they kind of looked at the list and said, this would inundate the voters if we go forward and say, you know, we've got 10 or 12 or 15, whatever it may be. And so why don't we go through this list and we can just scroll through them here. So are folks okay with that if I just kind of walk us through these so that we have a sense of them?
Yeah.
I have a question, Mr. Chair, if I can.
Yeah, please, Kyle.
I guess it would help me understand, I see two approaches, one to go through the list and deliberate on whether we see the necessity of splitting them up, or if we have a conversation first that sort of establishes one or the other approach that commits us, not that everything still, not that each one of these amendments still stands by opinion, but but that we commit to all of them. I mean, there's two ways to do that, and I think the outcomes are potentially different. It sounds like your intention is to go through the list and then talk about timing.
Thank you, Kyle. My rationale for that is that I know that people are really busy, so I'm not sure if everybody's had the opportunity to look at this list and think about it. And so I thought maybe a brief refresher. I was not necessarily thinking we talk about each one of them, but really just kind of scroll through them and just list them off. And then go into the discussion that you're talking about, if that makes sense.
That does. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, okay.
So Kevin, question. So tomorrow, maybe we're going to have more discussion. I see this on the agenda again. Is that right?
That's right. And what we're doing also is prepping for the town halls too. And we have had clarification also from the prosecutor's office that not all of these will have to be, it's not like every one of these is a separate proposition or a separate ballot initiative or ballot proposal. Many of these will be able to be combined. And I'm not using the right terminology, but it's kind of a conglomerate of some of the smaller things can come together. We'll call them bigger, and not because of quality or size or anything, but the larger topics, such as the one we just discussed, the creation of the Office of the Climate Commissioner or the Justice and Equity stuff, those would obviously be their own ballot proposals. But many of these can be brought together. And so once we decide upon our final list, the other conversation then is, what will that actually look like on the ballot? And that's a conversation to have with our prosecutor as well as our auditor. But primarily, I believe, with the prosecutor to think about how they come together. And so we don't have that information right now. Exactly. Yeah. So I have Kyle and then Jane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just quickly, and they don't, Catherine, you don't have to scroll. What is this? What is the total in the left-hand column before we start the list? How many are we talking about tonight? If we can. 26. Thank you.
So again, what the other thing we need to know is how many of those come together. If we were talking about 26 different ballot measures, I would be the first one to say, guys, we got to cut this in half at minimum. But I believe a number of these will be able to come together. And so we just need that data. And I know that the prosecutor and his staff have been working diligently to get us information in as timely of a manner as they can. And I don't believe they've had time to really look through this list as a whole yet either. And so that's a conversation that needs to happen. So let's just go through these really quickly, and then we can stop screen share and have a little bit of a discussion. And I'd be curious on commissioners' thoughts on kind of these different alternatives. So I'm not going to read them all. I'm just going to summarize. So you can see some of these in the beginning from initiative and referendum, looking at lowering the signature requirement for initiatives, addressing the financial limitations with initiatives. And Randy's put in chat that he has not seen this list. And I want to clarify, was this list, Catherine, I believe, was it sent out to the full commission?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, okay. So it should have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Jane. Yeah, you had your hand up earlier. I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I also so Charter Review Commission email. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can now.
Okay, maybe I'll just stop my video. Okay. So it was shared with all of us by Catherine in the last few days. The point that I've already made to all of you twice now actually is that the items that are listed here for proposed amendments under Justice and Equity are not the most recent version, which is why I sent around to all of you last night the marked up and well, not marked up, the highlighted changes that were made by our Justice and Equity Committee following our Monday meeting to address all of the inputs that we received in the meeting on the 20th of May. So I I would not like us to look at the Justice and Equity Committee proposed amendments that are on this list because they're not the most recent version. I would prefer that the full commission see that we incorporated the recommended edits as per the commissioner's requests of last week.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
Why don't we go ahead and just go through these quickly, summarizing them. And then what we will do is when we get to justice and equity, we'll skip those, but we will guesstimate that they're probably roughly the same number, and then we can have a bit of a discussion. We have the composition of the council under governance. I don't even see what this one's saying then. Refers to council as legislative authority. Motion, yeah, so this was to reject. Okay, and then, so we have, if you go down to the next one here, if you can scroll down a little more. I'm not sure how that helpful this is going to be actually going through each of these, because I do think they each need to be read more thoroughly. Hard to summarize some of these. So yeah, oh, I remember. So some of these, yes. So these are some of the ones that I would, say go into a conglomerate kind of, these are the crossing the T's and fixing some things. So governance did an excellent job of going into great detail in the existing charter and saying, here's some things that need to be corrected. And so many of these come under that sort of bailiwick, we'll say. If you can go down a little more. Okay, so here's a substantive one, which is that a term limits. So putting forward term limits, we voted on that for the county council. And I believe it was 3 terms.
Yeah, yes.
And then you can come back.
Yeah, after.
Yeah.
4
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. Okay, and then let's see, which one is this? So now we're getting into C and E. If you go down a little more, sorry, to keep going. Okay, Janet is asking if we could highlight the substantive ones. That's fine. So if you could highlight that term limits. And you guys go ahead and chime in if you think one is substantive that I miss. And oh, that's easier. So,
Or 1.
Catherine, is this you? Is this your screen? Maybe Janet, we're not going to be able to highlight.
I was just gonna say, put an X and H, column H, if she can do that. She doesn't have to highlight. Yeah.
Yeah.
There.
Okay, were there any up above that we missed that we would call substantive?
I think so.
Yeah, okay, Bob.
I think combine the 2 that had to do with initiative and referendum as one. I think that's an important issue.
So make both of those an X.
Right, as one issue combined.
I
have a comment.
We're not there. Okay, hang on one sec. So, Bob, what I would say is as far as combining them, that's the next conversation that I actually really hope we can have.
All right.
This is going to be really tough when the share screen only allows you to see so much.
Right.
Patty and then Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know I have at least one more amendment to put out here, and it would go with the initiative and referendum area too. And I was supposed to bring it up in new business, which is after you're discussing this. So, I can't do it. And I believe we'll be having another amendment tomorrow, probably from the process committee. So it's almost in my feeling, it's premature to do this in a way. And maybe it would be better to have a more recent one of these sent out so that we can actually look at these without having to scroll up and down somebody else's share screen. I mean, it just would be more efficient. I've been lost here, but I do want to bring in a couple more amendments. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Dave, what's your comment?
Well, I was just going to say there is another amendment that the Initiative and Referendum Committee passed out about paid regulating paid signature gathering. And I think that would fit well with the two other ones. Thank you.
Yeah, and as Jane just put in, thank you. So as Jane just put in the chat, this is the only full list that we have right now. There will be updates and additions. Why don't we stop screen share for a second? So what we need to do, and this is where this is going to get even more difficult because of Zoom and because we're not in person. We have to go through this list as a full commission and look at the breadth of work that we're working forward. And Patty, was that the cat or me?
It's the cat.
Okay, I just want to make sure you weren't saying no to me. Okay.
Bad Kevin.
So, I am open for ideas on how else to do this, but we have to go through this list and look at the breadth of the issues before us. And then we're going to have to have a bit of a back and forth with our prosecutor's office about like what we were just doing, where we're saying, we think this is substantive and it stands on its own. We think these 10 things could all come together. I see a lot of hands. Let me just finish my thought and then I'm going to get to everybody. I've got Maureen and Jane and Olivia and Bob. Sorry. Now I'm writing everybody's name down and forgetting my thoughts. So I'm not even going to write down your names. All I was going to say is we have to be able to get a sense of how many ballot propositions we're putting forward. And then decide if that really makes sense for us or not. And if we're still on the same page we were when we voted on all of these things. And so by us going through that list, I felt it might be helpful for us to all get a sense of it. But at this point, I'm going to, if everybody wanted to say something, I had Olivia, Maureen, who
And
else?
I was first.
And okay, so it was Maureen first, please.
So I'm just suggesting that we compartmentalize these. I think that would be easiest. If we took the ones that are brick and mortar and have a change to the charter, a word, a description, something that isn't a major proposal, keep the major proposals on a separate list and put these other things, they're not minor, but they can be reviewed and taken care of quickly. And that's what we want Randy to start working on.
Yeah. Okay, Olivia and then Jane and then Bob.
For the sake of process, I really think that we should pause on this part. It sounds like some of the committees need to have things updated. We need to send it out to everyone. We need to send it out to Randy, and we need to complete what the committees are going to present. It seems a little premature for us to be doing this at this point. I also really strongly believe that we need to vote, not just like, hey, what do you think? You know, like we need to vote on, are we going to move this forward or not? And if so, when? Kind of like a long-term process. You know, are we going to do it for this November ballot or are we going to do it next year? But it just seems a little premature to be spending time on this right now.
I have to say it, Olivia, you're the one who pushed me to put this on the agenda. So, okay, it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. I agree with you because of where we are and what's happening. So
correct. And exactly. We didn't know that there was undone material. That was part of it. So
right.
Here we are.
Okay. So, okay, I have Jane and then Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hopefully my video stays. I feel strongly that it could be very efficient and productive to have a subset of our commission work on this because we cannot do this as a full commission. We need to have a subset of us take stock of this list and come back based on clear instruction from this commission, come back with some, suggestion as to what could potentially be included in one ballot measure and so on and so forth. But there's no way we're going to be able to do this. So that's my point number one. as a full commission, because that would require every one of us to do our homework and actually go through these. And that's, by tomorrow, I don't think that's going to happen. The other thing is I want to clarify, Mr. Chair, that we're not talking about voting again on these proposed amendments. I just want, okay, thank you. I just wanted to be clear on that. And the third point I want to make is, and this is to Kevin, your point, and probably Olivia's as well, which is we have town hall meetings next Tuesday and Wednesday, and we have to be in a position to be able to speak to these. And for that reason, it's really important that we are ducks in a row and are in a position where we feel comfortable presenting this material. So those are my 3 points.
Thank you. Your last point was the reason that Olivia and I discussed putting this up and starting to bring this forward today and tomorrow and really spending the bulk of the time on it. And I will also say that I can't remember if I mentioned this to you. Bob, you're next. If I mentioned this to you when we spoke earlier, I know I've mentioned it to others tonight, and I'll just say it now, and we can decide who that's going to be at the end of the meeting. But I was going to ask for a subcommittee to begin working with myself and Megan to start finalizing this. And it's not just going through what you're saying now, it's also actually finalizing our document. There'll have to be a lot of back and forth with the prosecutor and others. But really, we have some incredible staff supporting us in Catherine and Megan. And we need to sit down. And I might even be radical and say that a couple of those meetings maybe are in person. But we need to spend another 50 hours over the next few days really diving into this. Or we're not only not be prepared to adequately address or present to the public what our findings are, but we'll be a little behind then. And, part of me is kicking myself that it took 6 weeks for us to get started in the beginning, and we can all go back and point fingers or whatever else. It's not worth it. Right now, we've just got to get our work done. So Jane, thank you very much for your comments. Sorry, Bob, go ahead.
My comments now are less than fresh. I was going to support what you are doing, Kevin, and point out that we have like 15 minutes left before public discussion and nothing else on the agenda. I was just going to suggest that we stop talking about it and push ahead and get as much done as we can, with the realization that what everyone else has said is correct, that we're going to have to take another look, but at least we'll begin to find out where we are if we just go ahead. So that's what I have to say.
Yeah,
great.
good.
Thank you, Bob.
Good.
Anne-Marie?
I'm in the same camp as Bob. But I also saw Janet Brunel's message that was like, can we highlight the substantive ones, and the ones that we think are going to be moved together, hold on those and get a set to Randy and find out which ones don't even have to have anything done to them. And kind of, we need to keep moving on this. This is not, we don't need to talk about this anymore. We need to do this.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So thank you. So then we can go back to if folks are okay with it, what we were trying to do was, and I love Janet's idea of highlighting, it seems like that's a problem, so we can just put an X next to them. So if we go back to that list, we could just very quickly go through, because I don't want to arbitrarily just say that something is substantive or not substantive. I think that should be a bit of a discussion from this commission as a whole. So if we just rapidly try and go through these, I think that would be helpful.
Yep.
And then in 14 minutes, we will be going to public comment, and then we can come back to this for the remaining, however many minutes we have, maybe 20, 25 minutes that we'll have after that. Is that okay with folks?
Let's do it.
Okay, if we could go back to the list, Catherine. And what I'm going to do is ask that members from the committee, instead of me trying to summarize, and some of these I wasn't familiar with, those of you that are familiar with them, please go ahead and jump in. So let's do that. If it's your committee, if you're the committee lead, so if you were the committee lead on governance, a 2-second, hey, this was this, just to remind us. And then we all say, yeah, that's substantive, or no, it's not. We put an X and we move on. I think that might help us move forward as well.
can we keep it brief, not a soliloquy, just
Yeah, and all
state.
these are voted upon too, so we're not trying to influence anybody's opinion or anything. It's just a reminder of what it was. Okay. So Catherine, if you're able to share screen again. Are you there, Catherine?
I
I'm
think she
trying.
left. I think
Okay.
she left when she heard us talking about not doing it.
Yeah, she was like, I'm out. You guys are
Took off.
Are you seeing it yet?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you so much. Okay, so initiative and referendum. We just went through these. Several people said that they were substantive. One is the signature requirement and one is the financial for initiative and referendum. Does somebody from initiative and referendum like to speak to these, or are we understood? I think it's kind of clear and we're done with them.
There could be one more.
Yes, understood. So Patty, again, there, we could have 10 more, but let's go through the list that we have right now and then recognizing there might be more. Okay, who was the lead on governance?
I was Chairman Ranker.
Dave, could you just take these next few for governance? Go ahead and go with it, and then people can just say if they're substantive or not. And if they're substantive, we'll put an X in the H column.
Okay, the first one was about, well, they're just kind of what they are, about the administrative departments having the administrative, let's see, I don't remember what they were at the time. It was unclear what the administrative departments were in turn. And so this was David. Was the county manager, what are the role of the county manager and the administrative departments? I think that we wanted some clarification on the website. And I think the three first ones of the governance committee actually could be combined into a one cleanup initiative is my sense of them.
And they're not major.
They're not major.
No, I would move on.
Yeah. And
Well, wait, are we going to X them? Are we going to include them?
Well, no. I think we're only Xing the ones that are major initiatives.
So what
Isn't
we're
that-
doing is these three. So what we're trying to do here is say that put an X on the ones where we think that they're substantive and they would probably be a standalone. And then the ones that were not Xing, we would be putting forward to Randy and saying, we believe all of these could kind of come together and then we can have that discussion.
Let's put RG.
What is RG?
I think
Gaylord.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think
No,
the first three are.
Everything's going to go to the prosecutor.
Yeah.
So if we can just keep it to the larger, what we're thinking of larger ones, we put an X next to, and the others we don't. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Patty, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I was just confused because it said the CRC motion on that one earlier was to reject. I mean, are we considering things that
Oh.
we?
No.
Oh, no. If this was not adopted, if this was not put forward, we're not considering it. No, we're definitely not revisiting things.
So why is it on the list?
Take it off.
Yeah.
Can't see him. Yeah.
Okay.
Just the
Put an R up there for remove.
second one.
Yeah, put remove.
Yeah.
We'll go through and remove that, but let's,
Put an R for remove. There you go.
okay.
And the final recommendation was for the Bureau of Tourism, and that was the recommendation. So that is not an amendment that I think we're presenting to the council. If I am right, we're not presenting amendments.
Correct.
And Randy just put a good note, which describes what I was trying to say much better, which is this is a list of all actions taken. What we're trying to do is just summarize the ones where we actually moved something forward. And this includes everything. And so it shows when we reject it as well. So we don't necessarily need to remove it. It's just, it's clarified already. What we're trying to do is list which ones we believe are substantive and will be separate and which ones we hope could come together.
And we have way less than the 20 to consider, or the 25.
I have my hand raised.
I saw that. Go ahead, Olivia.
For the sake of process, I'm trying to follow you, and I'm not understanding the process of what we're doing right now. This is also not the something that we agreed on, that this is how the process would go. So just for, I have been paying attention. So I'm just trying to understand, like, are we putting like, okay, this is something that we're recommending to the council? Is this something that we need Randy's thoughts on? Is that what we're doing right now?
So just a moment ago, we did agree, let's stop screen share. We did agree that we were going to try and go through this. It's not working. So what we're going to do is revamp the list so that it is just the list of the actions that we've put forward, not a list of all actions, but the action of it'll be just a list of the motions for charter amendments or propositions going forward, and that's it. I'm going to ask right now for who wants to be in a subcommittee to work on this, and I will nominate some people too, because some of you. So I've got Dick.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would like to suggest that there be one representative from each of the subcommittees a part of this group.
That's great, because that's why I said I'm going to nominate some people too. So I wanted to see who wanted to volunteer and then see who we have. So right now I've got Dick, Maureen. Who else had their hand up? I've got Sharon. Is that okay? No one else?
Can they say what committee they're from? So like Jane is doing, or Dick, what committee are you from?
Governance, climate, and oh God, one more. Elected versus appointed.
Governance.
It might be better if we just ask the chair of each of these committees to either offer themselves up or recommend somebody, Mr. Chair. Yeah.
Okay, guys, you have to be called on, first of all. Second of all, I have suggested 5 different things and everybody nods and says yes. And then we start trying to do it and everybody says no. So you're about to have a new chair. So what I'm going to say is this. I would like volunteers. If we don't have committees represented, then we're going to ask people from those committees to come forward. But we've got to get this done. Okay. And I can't just have 3 people. We also can't have 8 or 9 because we're not, anyway. So right now I have Dick, Maureen, and Sharon. Olivia, are you asking a question, or would you like to be on this?
I have a question on what is the responsibility of the group that you're forming before I sign myself up for more.
Yeah, totally. So I summarized it earlier. Bob, I see your hand too. So what I was suggesting is that a subset of us needs to take this and work on it, and then come back kind of with a proposal to the full commission, not necessarily even a proposal, but a summarization of the actions that we've taken that we're putting forward, and then maybe some recommendations on how this looks. There will have to be some consult with the prosecuting attorney, so we will need to get on his calendar or Amy's or another appropriate member of his team. And so the reason I wanted to try and get this set tonight is so that we can give him advance time to say, hey, when could you give us, because it's going to be more than one meeting. Like I said, if it's at all possible, maybe we even try and do this in person, but if that's just not possible because of COVID or because of people's schedules, we'll do it on Zoom. But I do think that it would be really important for a subset of us to get together to do this work. And Olivia, this came out of your and I's conversation 2 nights ago and last night, where we were just saying, like, Olivia and I can't keep doing all of this. We need a team of us to come together and try and get this done. So does anybody else have any questions on kind of what the task is that we're suggesting? Okay. Bob, you had a hand up. Did you want to be on it, or did you want to, did you have a question?
Volunteering. I'm on process and climate and elected and appointed.
Okay, so I've got Dick, Maureen, Sharon, and Bob. Anyone else? Really?
That's a good committee.
We can do it.
Olivia, are you able to? I know you're tapped with yeah, okay.
We'll see. I'll try.
And then Jane, Patty. Okay.
Starting to get everybody.
3, 4, 5.
I'm tag teaming with Kyle. He can join too.
I'd like either Kyle or Jane from Justice and Equity. So which one of you am I going to get?
I can contribute for justice and get equity if Kyle's good with that. I just can't commit to doing everything else, so.
No. Well, you're gonna, this is doing everything else. This is
Yeah,
diving in.
no, well, that's my challenge. I'm sorry, but yeah, so.
Okay, that's pretty. I've got Nick, Maureen, Sharon, Bob, Olivia, Jane, and myself.
That's plenty.
Yeah, that
Yes.
should do it.
Okay. Okay. And again, this group will not be making decisions. It will be summarizing things and coming back with recommendations. So does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. While we're all on and we have 3 minutes till public comment, let me ask this. I don't even know where we are with CDC. Can we, if we're masked, we could meet inside with that kind of a group. Is that something that people might be up for?
Yep. Me.
I'm 3 weeks post-vax. I'm
Okay.
good.
Okay. So is Mike still on? I'm toggling here. Okay. So we will reach out to Mike and see if we can get a spot from the county where we might be able to actually do this in person. And if not, we'll have to do it on Zoom, but we'll work on that. So the subcommittee, we're going to call it the executive committee, is going to work on this stuff. Execcom, because we got too many subcommittees. Patty, yeah, please.
Who's on it again?
It is Dick, Maureen, Sharon, Bob, Olivia, Jane, Kevin. Is that folks okay with that group? Okay, if not, I'm happy to step off and somebody else step on.
No.
Uh-huh.
I'm being serious. Okay, so with that, our hope is that we will be able to get together, tomorrow or the next day. To actually not tomorrow, but maybe Friday would be our first meeting, and have to spend some significant time. So, of the people who are on this, are you flexible Friday during the day?
Yes.
Yes,
If not,
yes.
okay. So
I've
this,
got to check my schedule, but basically, yes.
so this raises a question, which is, are folks okay with a subset of that group? If not everybody can show up for a meeting, but the subset's starting to get to work on it.
Yes.
Yes. It has to be.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Olivia, you have a comment?
Yeah, I would like to be a part of this, especially because if Kevin doesn't want to step up and step in, we've been doing a lot. I have Saturday through Monday off, thankfully, bankers holiday of Memorial Day. So if we could do it this weekend, that'd be great. If not, then, you can count me out. So, because I can't do tomorrow's meeting and this. So if you choose to do Monday, then I'm out.
So what we will do is with this subset, we will have a separate discussion. Maybe when we're done with the meeting tonight, the subset can stay on for a moment and we compare calendars so that we don't waste everybody else's time doing that right now.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, Bob, go ahead.
Will this not necessitate post us getting together and doing all this work, another meeting of the full commission?
Yep.
Yep. So that militates toward getting it on Friday if possible, although Olivia is pretty important. But anyway, because we're going to have to fit another meeting in. When are we going to do that? Monday, Tuesday?
So we're going to go to public comment right now, and then we're going to circle back on this.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so that's what I'd like to do first, because we're at that time. So we'll go to public comment and then we'll circle back on this. I think this is an important discussion. It's tedious, but this is really important because we're finalizing, our work at this point. So with that, we're going to go to public comment. And if members of the public would like to comment, please turn on your video if you're able, and then unmute yourself. Okay, I see Alexandra.
I'm
And sorry, could you?
Alexandra Guy, Orcas Island.
Sorry.
As someone who has sat in on most of the meetings of the CRC and the Climate and Environment Committee, I have to admit that I am totally confused about what this climate and environment commissioner in office is really supposed to do, which I find disturbing, given that we're now to the point of, presenting it at town halls and to the voters. So based on what was said today at the meeting, it sounds to me like it's basically a glorified code enforcement officer for code that is already in place for those areas of the county code. And if I'm wrong about that, that would be great, but it's a far cry from what I'm seeing right now, not being able to see all the documents, because I don't, as far as I know, they're not public, or at least I don't know where they are. I don't get how this is bold climate action that's really facing what we're doing. And, based on all the things that are sort of exempted, I don't get it. And, I feel kind of embarrassed about saying that, but I'm really confused about why we're even doing this position based on all the things that it's not going to do. It sounds like all we're doing at this point is moving environmental resources from public works over to a new department. And if you're trying to do something else, then maybe a more concise message to be prepared by the time we do the town hall would be a good idea. And maybe if somebody just comes along for the first time and sees it, they'll have a really different perspective than I do, because I did miss a couple of meetings recently, and maybe it all came together in ways that I don't see. So I apologize if that's the case, but I just wanted to share that because as you know, I'm a big fan of trying to do something to protect and preserve nature and deal with climate change. And if this isn't really going to do too much, I'm concerned about that. So I'm all for doing the most we can. I know you're all trying to come up with something that's actually going to pass and get past all the resistance of potentially negative voters, but it's not going to really, from what I can see, we're not going to get the kind of results we can look back on and go, see, wasn't this a good idea? If it is what I just described, which, it may not be, but like I said, I'm hoping that you can clarify it in a more strong way by the time we get to the town halls. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Alexandra. Randy?
Sure. I wanted to answer Janet's question. There are items that were not addressed in the issues that were presented today by the Charter Review Commission that we had addressed in our memorandum of May 12th. And we really want you to address each of the things that we talked about in our memorandum of May 12th and have a discussion about those with the entire commission, all of you. I represent all of you. I want to see this work for you. And the first step to make that work is item A and item B, which is to establish the officer. That is the way you assign and delegate responsibilities and duties under the Constitution. The word used in the Constitution is officer. And I've pointed out in Article 11, Section 4, Paragraph 8, it's quoted in the memorandum, the precise word. And so there's really no question about this. This is the way it works. And it's also because you integrate this officer in the rest of the charter. So we pointed out to you exactly how in underlined strikeout format, you can integrate that officer into the county charter. And so you will accomplish your objective. So I really, I can't speak more strongly enough to all of you to reread that memorandum, especially points A and B. But those are not the only points. I want to talk to you about every one of those points and why they're there. We're here to help you. We're here to make sure that that office works the way you intend it to work. And that's our objective. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Lauren Stevens.
Hi, thank you all for all your work. Tonight, I want to say I don't support creating an elected climate environment commissioner. And, the question came up, would they be involved in whether you could dig a pond? Of course they would, because digging a pond relates to the critical areas ordinance. I find that being allowed to comment after the vote is taken as somewhat meaningless. If this body is representative, you might want to consider the input of people, the people you represent, before you vote. And I'm just concerned about the lack of availability of documents on the main page of the charter review. Jane was really helpful to me finding agendas and so forth last night, but it is a challenge. And I don't see any reason why someone couldn't be given the task, if you have a meeting, of on your main page, having the link to the current meeting and the agenda available with one click. And if you're going to use a document like you use that document tonight, then that document should be in the document section for discussion on the night it's being discussed. The list of your possible discussion items hasn't been updated on that document list on your main page since February. I think it is just, I know everybody's busy, but those things seem to me to be basic, that the public should have access to what's being discussed. That's all my comment. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lauren. I'm just toggling through the different pages here. Any other members of the public that would like to speak this evening? Okay, with that, I'm going to close public comment. And then we're going to go back to this. Although I'm actually feeling like maybe tonight could actually be a night we end a little early. Although every time I've said, oh, Micheline, I'm sorry. Micheline, are you there? Did you want to speak as well?
Yes, I am here.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't see your hand. Go ahead, please.
No problem with that. Again, I would thank all of you for being here.
Micheline, I'm sorry, could you introduce yourself for the record?
Yeah, I'm Micheline Halliday, San Juan Island. I am a little confused about this. First of all, thank you for being here and for all your good work. It is good work. I am confused a little bit. To me, what is wrong with the climate and environment and why we have a climate environment problem is because of negative impacts of human activity. So
wow.
To not have the position be, you said primarily involved. So maybe it is partially involved or primary responsible. You said for building codes, subdivisions, tourism, and other county functions unrelated to climate environment. I can't see how those positions are not related to human activity that degrades a habitat or environment. And so I'm confused about that. And I also went to the comprehensive plan meeting last Friday. And in that plan, someone brought up that the work this committee, the full committee, but the Climate and Environment Committee in particular is doing. And they said, first of all, they didn't know, some of the members didn't know. And they said, well, we went all over that and we've already solved all that. And we do not approve of this position. So I'm like, okay, I've got comprehensive plan commissioners saying no to this. So it's like, again, I'm going to say, we need a voice at the table that is something other than money or economy. It needs to be people who care about the environment and care about climate and the habitats, environments, and all the beings that live in them. I know that I stumbled through that, but that's the best I could do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Micheline. Okay, am I missing any other members of the public who would like to speak?
Ben. Yes.
Ben, please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, Ben Bama, San Juan Island. Thank you, as always, for all your hard work and for allowing public comment on this. I too want to say that after the presentation, I was a little confused. I'm all for the position of an elected or appointed, but I'm all for the position of climate and environment. But based just on the documents I saw tonight, I'm really not sure what the position actually does, which echoes what a lot of other people said. And it may just be the way those documents are written, but I'm really not sure how this position exists outside of the sort of the rules and regulations that are already there. would like to see this position be someone who has the ability to sort of forge a new path. And I didn't see any sort of way to do that laid out in what you presented tonight. So I just wanted to say that if there's a way you can make that stuff less confusing or more concise or more to the point, maybe that would be good. So, but as always, thank you for all your hard work, and all right, good job.
Who is that? Steve, please. And just for the record, we're just going to keep public comment open until everybody's had from the public has had an opportunity to speak. So Steve, please go ahead.
Appreciate that, Kevin. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I have a lot to say, but I'm not going to say it because you have a lot to do. I have been a climate activist for 30 years, and this is very important to me. I'm not exactly sure what the right solution is, but I know we need something other than the status quo. And I appreciate all the hard work that's going into this, but I am really afraid that you guys are really up against it here with town halls coming up and then a presentation to the county council. And I hate that you're in that position because I know you've tried hard to pull this all together, but it is a little bit like herding cats, as it always is. I am concerned that before the town hall, I don't see enough detail about the costs of this office, the staff required, when the climate action plan will be created and by who, because to me, without the climate action plan, you've got nothing. And so I accept a piecemeal approach. So I know what I'm probably saying is nothing new to any of you, but I have lived in this world before, and I'm just concerned that if you don't go in front of the public during these town halls at this 11th hour with a really concise, clear message as to what it is you want to try to do and what the responsibilities will be and how some of these details, as I've just mentioned, are going to work, I'm afraid it's going to set a bad set of wave action rippling through the community that will affect the vote, which I already feel is tenuous. Anyway, thank you very much for all of your hard work.
Thanks, Steve, very much. Okay, are there any other members of the public? I'm not seeing everybody's hand for some reason, so if other commissioners see somebody with a hand up, please let me know. I don't see anybody else. Okay, with that, I'm going to close public comment. And so again, our subcommittee is going to stay on for a few minutes and try and figure out when we're going to meet. Patty, I see your hand, so just give me 1 second. And then on Randy's point that he raised, I think is really important as well. And that's a question that I had actually posed to him as well, that we have a conversation. And so what I'm going to suggest, and we can talk about this offline as well, but maybe Anne Marie and Dick, and if I should be part of that, maybe can sit down with Randy over the next 24, 48 hours and really go through that as well. I think that'd be helpful so that we can finalize that document. And so we'll see if we can't make that happen. Patty, go ahead.
Sorry, I keep doing this, but I was asked to put in new business our one remaining amendment that we wanted to put forward.
Yeah,
So
please go ahead.
that here, I just want to share the screen on it, and come on. Doesn't seem to be giving me anything. Oh, wait. Usually when I go share screen, then I have all my things there, but it's not there. Just a
And we
sec.
also have under new business, justice and equity is going to do, I believe, tribal acknowledgement as well, I think.
Okay.
I have a couple of items here.
Okay, so let's see if it'll work this time. Sorry,
That's okay.
there it is. Okay. So one of the last thing we had at initiative and referendum was to do something about paid signature gathering. And Dave was able to find that the city of Seattle had an ordinance about paid signature gathering that we could borrow from and put in our charter, so that paid signature gatherers collecting petition signatures for San Juan County ballot measures must visibly display a statement showing that they are paid signature gatherer to each person from whom they receive a signature. This may be fulfilled by posting a legible and conspicuous sign or placard or wearing a badge stating paid signature gatherer. And I guess I'll just read really quickly the findings that we have there. San Juan County seeks to protect its initiative process by encouraging grassroots direct democracy and hindering the corporate turfing of our public dialogue and initiative process. There have been legal challenges to banning paid signature gathering, which is why we couldn't do that. This proposal is copied from the City of Seattle statutes. If this becomes law and is challenged in course, it's presumable that Seattle will also be a party to that challenge. In the state of Washington, signatures range from $1.10 per signature to $12 per signature on statewide ballots. This proposal is not a ban. Signature gathering is hard work, and it is reasonable to compensate people for their effort. Just the same, voters should have the right to understand the motivations of the petitioner. And then we indicate that the Charter Review Commission also proposed lowering the required number of signatures to gather in order to activate and inspire a more robust culture of direct democracy in our county. Paid signature gathering is generally done by people out of the county and by out-of-state people with little interest and no understanding of the ideas they are petitioning. And so then we just list the reference there for Seattle.
Okay. And so this was a motion from the subcommittee?
This is correct. The subcommittee would like the full commission to take this forward.
Okay, if we could stop screen share for a second.
You bet.
Thank you so much, Patty. Okay, so the subcommittee, and this is under new business, the subcommittee has brought this forward to make sure that, yeah, and if you're a member of the public, thank you. If you, any members of the public, if you could turn off your video at this point. And so this is subcommittee recommendation to have paid signatures be required to have something visible saying that they are a paid signature. So any comments? I see Anne Marie.
Yeah, motion to accept the recommendation of the committee.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
Second by Janet. Okay, there's a motion to second under discussion. Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, if not, I would call the question. Oh, Paul?
Well, I'm just thinking that here we are in San Juan County. This is coming from maybe some of the urban areas down in Seattle that do this sort of thing. But it seems to me that the public would be kind of appalled if we went through that kind of process to have paid signature gatherers. I just don't think it's welcoming in San Juan County.
I would say, Paul, that actually last year I saw some at the market here on Orcas.
I wasn't aware. I wasn't aware that they were paid.
Yeah, and they were. I can't even remember what they were doing, but I remember I asked them. I said, "Are you?" I said, "What is this for?" And they gave their spiel, and I said, "Oh, and who are you with?" And they just admitted. They were like, "Oh, I got a job." Like, you know, I was like, "Oh, where are you from?" And he said Seattle. He said it was an excuse to come to the islands.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, Patty.
And Paul, I just want to say that you might not know that they're paid. All we want to do is have that identified so that you do know.
Thank you, Patty.
Okay. Any other comments or discussion?
Just want to say that I agree with it. I think it's a good thing to put forward.
Okay. Janet? No? Olivia?
Is this a recommendation or an amendment to the charter?
I
It's
believe.
an amendment.
Yeah.
Where would it go?
Probably with the other initiative and referendum.
Elections.
What section is that?
Gosh, I'm sorry, I don't know, Olivia. Right, it's at 9, I think, that
There are two others, I think, that were regarding initiative and referendum that have been put forward. So they would be in that same section. This is part of what Megan's working on for us also, is cleaning up the whole thing. But it is nice in the future. Well, I hope there probably won't be very many, but when subcommittees are, when it's possible to try and put it in the right section, that's great.
Looks like it's section 6.
Sure.
So any other discussion? Any other discussion? Okay, with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Paul is an abstention. Okay, chair votes aye, motion carries. Okay, Jane, under new business, did you have, or Kyle, is it? I believe the tribal acknowledgement. Yeah, Jane, go ahead, please. You're muted.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than just that, Kevin. What I did, well, if everyone is agreeable to this, what I did was I sent around to all of you yesterday the proposed amendments that we came up with and the 2 recommendations, and I did a yellow highlighting of those areas that we adjusted based on the input feedback we received from the full commission on Thursday. So I'm not entirely sure everyone's had a chance to look at that. I'm prepared to go through it again briefly now. So that's part A. Part B is Kyle is in a position to speak to more authoritatively, so to speak, about the acknowledgement language and the background to that. So I am prepared to do a share screen on what I sent around to you all. Patty's shaking her head and saying no, so I don't know what to do. And then Kyle is prepared to share with you what he has learned in real time about that acknowledgement, which is extremely important information because it needs to be substantiated in the findings. And that was discussed at length in our committee meeting on Monday. So Mr. Chair, I defer to you in terms of what we should do next.
I would say do the screen share so that we can see it.
Okay, so, and Olivia just said, Tony has joined via phone. Yippee! Welcome, Tony. Okay, here we go. So I just asked my dear commissioners patience again as I take you through yet another rendition of this. Okay, so and this will be posted tonight or whenever Catherine can. So it's not up on our website right now. So in terms of the proposed amendments that we discussed, you will see that in terms of a proposed amendment C and F, no changes were made. Slight modifications were made to A, B, D, E, F, and G. And then minor to no amendments were made to the, well, proposed recommendation 1. Actually, I don't think we made any amendments, so we'll continue on. So in Article 10, proposed amendment A for Article 10 general provisions would be a new section on non-discrimination. It was a recommendation that we bring this introductory paragraph up that was in the findings. We have done that. You will see the inclusions of the and staff as we discussed under clause 1. Similarly, we included the suggestion of hiring and conditions of employment as per our discussion. Our esteemed consultant Megan suggested a comma here, and she's going to need to do a little edit of this for us anyway. And then we included county at that juncture. And I apologize, but my B is being lost, so it needs to be put back there. That is, no, sorry, 2. It's clause 2 that needs to, I'm sorry, that should be clause 2. The only change made there was, well, pregnancy, I didn't highlight it, but that was included, and a comma again in county. So that was all that was done with Article A, Article, proposed amendment A. Do we need to discuss this, Mr. Chair, or should I continue on?
I would ask if any members of the commission have any questions. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so proposed amendment B is with reference to the creation of a Justice, Equity, Inclusion Commission. This is additional language that was included following a discussion of or at a discussion in our committee meeting on Monday, that just provides a little bit more specificity regarding when this body would be established, how the members would be appointed, and then the term for which during which the citizen members would be appointed, and how they'd be renewed if they could be, and then just again reference to the charter in the second to last sentence, charter in the county, and then mentioning that the membership composition tasks and functioning of the commission shall be adopted of the council no later than December 1, 2021. And our committee is still just fine tuning those sort of details that we would be passing on to the commission, to the county council to pass by ordinance. So we would be happy to share those. We will share those with the full commission, and we can post those on the website as soon as we have just fine-tuned what we shared publicly last Thursday in our meeting, which is, membership, composition, tasks, and functioning of that body. Are there any questions on that?
Any questions from anybody? I can't see your hands, so I don't think there's any questions.
Okay, thank you. And when I'm finished, if I've missed anything, or when Kyle's finished, if we've missed anything, we certainly welcome that feedback. So proposed amendment D regarding exemptions under section 8.20. What we have done here is again made reference to the charter in clause 2, the charter on the county with regard to legislation, regulations, etc. And under clause 3, we added including on boards, commissions, and committees, which we wanted to do to reconcile with the operations subcommittee's work to ensure that was in there. So that is all we did to that proposed amendment, those two edits. If there are any questions on that.
Any questions from anybody? Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Proposed amendment E, Article 9, Charter Review and Amendment, Section 9.21. The only amendment we made there was to be specific with regard to full commission meetings. That was the only edit following the discussion we had about that was asked for by the full commission. Any questions?
Good.
Okay, thank you. So now with proposed amendment G, which is, and the title of this acknowledgement has been modified, and we may want to find out if the full commission is in agreement with this title, although Kyle may have a suggestion in this regard because he has gained further information and knowledge for our findings since we met on Monday. But this is now, the title we would propose would be acknowledgement of the relationship of Indigenous peoples with the land and waters within San Juan County. And then those are the words that we shared with you, I believe, well, slightly modified last week. We changed San Juan County to we and included a that. We wanted to wait until Kyle obtained further information, and he's done that. So he's prepared to speak to that. And before I turn to him, because once I do, I don't need to come back to you all. I'll just say that in terms of the recommendations regarding the Law and Justice Council, one is related to the membership, and that is just that the chair of the Justice, Equity, and Inclusion, I need to strike review. I apologize for that. It's not called a review commission. The chair would sit on that body if it's voted in favor of, or two individuals, each representing a different San Juan County district, and then one female representative of those of either the BIPOC or LGBTQ community. And then, sorry, this was added as well, just to be clear that The county council shall formalize the participation of citizen representatives at the Law and Justice Council meetings as appropriate to ensure that the business of this council can be conducted in conformity with the corresponding RCW, as there may be issues discussed during council meetings that should not include citizen representatives such as security issues. It should read Law and Justice Council meetings. So I actually obtained that input from the prosecuting attorney's office, because there would be some meetings that can only, that citizen representatives should not attend. So in terms of certain agenda items, and then this was not changed. So just pertaining to the recommendations, are there any questions on that? And if not.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Pat,
Where it says one female representative of the BIPOC and or LGBTQ community, I sort of wonder about that because, you know, I know somebody who is female, but is identifying as male. Would they then not be, you know, when you're talking with that community, it can be a little difficult. Would that then not include that person?
Thank you, Patty. That's a point very well taken. We can adjust this language. We can say one female / we can be specific and say non-binary. Would that satisfy you, Patty?
I think that would be better.
Okay,
Yeah,
I hear you, and I'm going to put it in here. And any other comments on that? Because I thank you, Patty, for that. I'm very appreciative of that.
why isn't it, Jane, why isn't that just one representative of the BIPOC and or LGBTQ community?
Well, because I just my guess is, Mr. Chair, that these two individuals are very likely, there's a good chance they're going to be male. If the commission would like to just make it non-specific and would like to say one representative, I'm okay with that. Like, this is what we're open for discussion on now. So happy to have your feedback on this.
I think that's good advice.
If they're non-binary, they're not going to be male or female. So take that out. Just have it non-binary.
Then,
Right?
can
Isn't that
say-
right?
Or I'm yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
we got 6 minutes if you
We
want to
could
do
say
the.
one representative. What do you think? Honestly, I'm not. It's a recommendation. It's not an amendment. So
I would say representative.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good, that's right.
I think that would be wise.
Okay, everybody in favor with that?
Yes, yes.
All right. Struck it out. There we go. So that's it
I
from
wish
my side.
our work was that easy.
Pardon me?
I said I wish the rest of our work was that easy. Okay, let's.
Okay.
Jane, can you stop sharing that?
Oh.
Yep. Over to my co-chair. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. For the sake of time, I just wanted to contribute here. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. So my apologies to the group for leaving in the middle of this conversation a week ago. I understand there were some questions around this, the acknowledgement and some history. So very briefly, this was one of our initial issues as a committee. And at the time when it came up, there was not any onboard knowledge that one existed, that a written acknowledgement existed in the county. And it was actually discovered that this acknowledgement and the language I'm going to share with you on the next screen was already developed and has been utilized by the Environmental Resources Division. I won't take the time to read it to you, but this specific language is also used among many of the Coast Salish tribes in their own meetings and presentations. So this is not, this wasn't just developed on the fly in our own county. It has been utilized in a number of different settings, and a version of it is used by the Northwest Straits Commission. It's a little different because that body includes the Makah tribe, and the Makah are not formally Coast Salish. So the language is important. It is not, in the committee's view, and certainly in mine, from conversations with staff and from consuming some of the historical information that built this acknowledgement, our submission is to include it in the charter as written and not to wordsmith it. So either include it or not include it as it's written. So give me 1 second here. So this would go in, be the very first thing in the charter is our recommendation. And it reads as follows: let us acknowledge we reside on the ancestral lands and waters of the Coast Salish people who have called this place home since time immemorial. And let us honor inherent Aboriginal and treaty rights that has been passed down from generation to generation. That's the statement. So the background, if anyone wants to learn more, this is hosted on the county's website via the Environmental Resources Division in the Cultural Resources section. And the background and a lot of the discussion around the use of this acknowledgement is actually discussed or covered in some really great, I would recommend for everyone to see, a 3-part series with a number of different tribal members in the region and some of our county's representatives, including members of the council. So that's the recommendation for inclusion in the charter and for utilization. So this, I'm not sure. I'm guessing that my co-lead gave you some of the findings. So there is not that we are able to determine a use of an acknowledgement like this in county government yet in any of the counties in Washington. So we would be the first not to utilize it, but to include it in our government and utilize it at the highest of county levels. So I'll stop sharing, and I'm interested in questions.
We have a number of hands up. I would just say that I had the same comment that Randy just put in chat, which is we need to change, grammatically, there's an error because it's duplicated. So you have to change has to have.
A plural, okay.
Was it?
Did anybody
Did
have
all the hands go away?
Yeah. I think all of us have our little grammar thing in the back of our head that just read that and went, no, 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 no. Jane, you have another comment?
I just want, sorry, then Bob. I'm sorry, I thought Bob was done. I just wanted to say my co-chair was called away to emergency service duty, as you all know, last Thursday. And yeah, so yeah, Kyle would have been with us. And so I'm glad he's been able to join and share that additional information and insight so that we're clear on what that language should be, and what he's learned since is what will reinforce our findings when we share this with the public next week. And I think that this is pretty groundbreaking stuff. And there's a lot of institutions and organizations in Washington State that do this, but it would be pretty amazing for our county to do it. So thank you.
You need a motion?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think so, but let's let Bob make his comment first. And then
I just had the grammatical comment, and also to point out again, I think I said this before, that at least one of the political parties all the way up to the state uses this to begin all of their meetings.
Yeah. Okay. So I would really appreciate a motion to put this on the charter.
Move to accept.
Okay, that's Paul, and then a second by Janet.
Second, yeah. Beat you again, Dave.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on the floor to accept this language with that change, I imagine. So it's grammatically correct, so it says have.
Yes.
And so there's a motion and a second before us. And the original proposal from the subcommittee was also that this be item 1A in the charter. So it's the very first item of the charter. And that it be also be encouraged that all county public meetings be led off with this acknowledgement. Am I correct on that? That's the full recommendation from the charter. So Paul, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. And Janet, that's your second? Okay. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you all for your work. Jane, a question on the previous issues that you brought forward, the highlighted items, did those require a motion or were those just showing us the edits that you had made?
I do defer to you, Mr. Chair, on that. I'm suggesting that with having seen them, if there are no objections, that we had previously voted last Thursday to approve them. So
That was my understanding. Are there any objections with that from anybody?
No, that's good.
No.
Okay, great.
thank you,
Great.
everybody.
Okay, so we're 2 minutes over, which is
I
good.
move that we adjourn.
Second.
1 second. Okay, all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye, 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 aye.
Wonderful. Okay. If a couple of you could stay on, Olivia, are you staying on? Dick and Anne Marie, if you could stay on as well, and Maureen.
Yep.
Thank you.
You want me to do it?
Okay.
Are we ending record?
Process meets in an hour.
End recording, please. Yes. Is Randy still on? No.
I'm
Get
trying to
one.
get to the end recording. My computer is acting.
Okay.
Kevin, did you want us to stay on the executive committee to look at dates to meet?
Oh, gosh, yes, yes. So Sharon, Bob.
Yeah,
don't go
okay,
anywhere.
okay.
Olivia, Jane, Dick, Maureen, Sharon, I think we've got everybody.
Is someone else able to stop recording? My computer is
I
dead.
can't. I'm not able to.
Please ask the host to give you permission to, no.
I can't do anything.
Can you make me host? Oh, I don't know how to.
I have a blank screen. I have a gray screen.
If we all leave and then hop back on the same link, that might work. I can log into the county Zoom account here.
Yeah, that should work. Thank you.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Mhm.
So just leave.
We should,
Yep.
we should leave and then what?
And log back into the
And
same.
then log back in.
We'll be able to log back in. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.